Hey, what's up, audience? It's the controversial quotes slash drone thrust. If you're new to this channel, please feel free to feel free to subscribe to both of my channels at controversial quotes and drone thrust. That Donald rails against windmills. Yes, the Donald Trump is on a trip to Scotland, and he made a point to tell the audience that he did not like the view of the windmill from his golf course. Trump has claimed in the past, against scientific evidence, that windmills in the ocean were correlated with whales beaching and killing themselves. There's no scientific evidence for that theory. Supposedly, if you read what a marine biologist might have said, I actually think that they should do more research into do windmills how do windmills affect creatures like whales. I think that the scientific evidence needs to be thoroughly evaluated. um, Trump made an interesting point about windmills, and there is one in my community. He said that they ruin the plains. Trump made the point that you know, America is a beautiful country, and if we put windmills in all of the flat areas, it will become less beautiful. I agree with that. I'm for nuclear energy. When I see, when I look at the Great Plains of America and Europe, I do not want to see uh, them get dominated by ugly windmills. I've read that windmills are questionable in terms of their usefulness in generating power. They say with windmills, you have to know the direction of the wind in order to extract any power from them. I guess this is like an area where I would tend to agree with Trump. I do not believe we need to extract power from windmills. I would compare, the windmill energy extraction craze with ethanol in the past. Do you remember during the 2000s fuel crisis, people wanted to power automobiles with corn via E85 ethanol? I mean, it doesn't seem to me like there's any. I do listen to Radiohead. It doesn't seem to me like we have ethanol vehicles now. I think 20 years from now, we're going to fortunately get to the point where we tear down the windmills. America is a country that has a housing crisis. There are like 700,000 homeless people. Having massive wind farms in flat areas creates a housing shortage. Trump is right about the windmills, and I actually think that nuclear power generation is the only way to solve the energy needs of modern society. And on the issue of homelessness in America, Trump issued an order that I agree with. He gave an executive order to clear out encampments of homeless people that the ACLU objects to. I agree with this. It, you have to deal with the issue of homelessness in a sensitive manner. I mean, I feel fortunate to have a roof over my head, and I feel bad for people who are suffering in New York, all over the country, with high housing costs in cities like Los Angeles, Portland, and New York City. I don't think it's healthy for society to have large groups of homeless people, wandering around. I think that they need to go to institutions. They need some type of jobless training, and Trump it was correct in giving the order to you know basically, I guess, to arrest the homeless and transfer them to a facility that can meet their needs. You know, but obviously, the issue of homelessness is very complex. Okay, so what's new for the Democrats that's bad? Ben Shapiro recently he did a video wherein he talked about some new poll that uh, illustrated the fact that Democrats are having in the midst of a polling disaster. Despite the fact that the Democrats have a convenient villain in Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump has very high he has a very high negative poll number. He's very controversial, and the Democrats have a convenient villain that they could, throw mud at in the figure of Donald Trump. But despite the fact that there's a Trump presidency, Democrats are experiencing low poll numbers for some reason. I've read on the Drudge Report that Democrats are posting, workout videos on social media in order to garner followers. Uh, I think Democrats realize that they are have struggling with the youth vote, and they want to come off as being cool. So what they're doing is going to the gym and pumping iron, and using that as a means of attempting to get more voters. The problem with the Democrats is that a lot of their policies don't work, in my opinion. Democrats are embracing the democratic socialist model, wherein you soak the rich in order to provide a big safety net for the poor. The problem with Democrats is that they uh, cast such a wide safety net that the safety net drags down the entire boat. Democrats have unfortunately embraced the notion that there should be no billionaires. What Democrats want is statism. Statism doesn't work where it's tried, in my opinion. If you look at countries like Cuba, Venezuela, China, you'll see that there's a lot of poverty there, and that it's not a wise idea to let the federal government monopolize the wealth supply via wealth taxes. I'm someone who believes that if I invested in Nvidia when it was a penny stock, I should be able to keep all of my investment. I do not believe that just because billionaires are getting richer and at a pace that the poor can't keep up with, that there's a reason to have socialism. Uh, the Democrats have a very divisive figure running for the New York City mayor's office. Zorhan Mandani wants to do things that he's not legally allowed to do. He cannot place a wealth tax on the billionaires in New York in order to pay for free bus fares and free grocery stores. If you look, Mandani wants to do things that he does not have the power to do, and unfortunately, in New York today, there was another brutal attack by a madman. Um, in New York City, an example was shown that we don't need fewer police on the street. We need a lot more. A deranged man was able to go into an office building in New York City and do something unspeakable. America is a country that will always be afflicted with a high rate of randomized gun violence, in my opinion. Our Constitution is the only one in the world, I think, that guarantees the rights of its citizen to bear arms. And the problem with the problem with America having a Second Amendment is that it does guarantee that you're going to have an epidemic of gun violence that you just can't prevent with regulations. As the statistics show that there's 100 million guns throughout America. They're very popular. I mean, if a Democrat were to run on the position that the government must confiscate all guns, then he would be he wouldn't get elected. I mean, Americans are very defensive of their right to own guns, despite the fact that it kills them every day. It seems to me like gun confiscation wouldn't even work. So, when you have a scenario like you see in New York City today, I think the only way to mitigate that problem is by putting more police on the beat. During the George Floyd riots, I like to talk about that a lot because I thought they were horrible and unjustified. You had a groundswell of a movement in predominantly Democratic ran cities to defund the police. It seems to me like the opposite is true. And, in order for Republicans to stay in power, they should stop electing, people like Donald Trump and get back to people, like George Bush, Pataki, old Rudy Giuliani, Christine Todd Whitman. And that's an extremely unpopular message that I have. Uh, if you look at the YouTube political landscape, you're going to see that it's dominated by no, the democratic socialists like the Young Turks who want free everything, and the rapid right wing populists like Ben Shapiro who don't understand that you know some of the core tenets of the Bible Belt are wrong. Ben Shapiro seems to think that the conservatism of Rush Limbaugh, will play well throughout the country, and it doesn't. Um, so, what's new with MrBeast? MrBeast has been facing a backlash for using his excursions to Mexico in order to huckster candy bars. I recently read up that the Mexican government is officially furious at MrBeast for his trip to the ruins. He used them. He used his trip there to make jokes about stealing antiquities and to sell candy bars. I thought that was totally tasteless of him. I mean, MrBeast is a visionary genius. He does a lot of things that I like, but I don't let people off the hook when they do something that I think is ridiculous. Whether or not it's Taylor Swift or MrBeast, and I'd be curious to see if MrBeast plans on donating some of his profits to help people in need in Mexico and apologizing for using his trip to the Mayan ruins to promote candy bars. But there is some. I saw some news about MrBeast that I liked today. He's doing like a cool animated series. It looks like he's looking back at old cartoons of X-Men and Spider-Man and Barnyard Commandos, and he's creating a cartoon called MrBeast Lab. And the cartoon looks really good. I mean, you could tell that the people who scored the music were musically talented, and it looks like it has really cool, innovative graphics. So I do look forward to watching the MrBeast uh, lab. Currently, so Europe is now embracing AI. Europe realizes that they're going to have massive data centers that consume a lot of water. I'm going to be curious as to how Europe views AI data centers. European economies are the most heavily regulated economies in the free world. If you look at European emissions standards on motorcycles, you'll notice that the European emission standards make it so that companies like Suzuki can't sell all of their models in Europe, like the Hayabusa. You can't buy like certain Yamaha sport bikes in Europe because they're so crazy about emission standards. Um, but now AI is becoming the next growth industry. And one problem with this is that the data centers consume a massive amount of energy and water. And this adds to the controversy of AI. People don't like AI because they feel like it's easy to use AI to generate false information. I mean, as you could see from this telecast, I used grok AI to generate a fake picture of a president. I mean, YouTube has it's debatable, as to if I should do this, but look, it's clearly labeled that it's not a real picture. The CEO of OpenAI stated that one of his concerns about AI is that it can be used to fool the public. The Russians use AI to generate images of their favorite dictators with celebrity endorsements. In Burkina Faso, there's some horrible dictator who had an AI presentation of him wherein Beyonce Knowles and Justin Bieber endorsed him in AI format. But in fact, Beyonce and Justin would want nothing to do with the dictator of Burkina Faso, I guarantee you. But we're noticing that, yes, deep fake images are being used by the Russian government in order to spread propaganda throughout, poor parts of Africa. That is a major issue that governments will have to deal with when it comes to AI. And another issue with AI is the contentious one of copyright. All AI data centers train their models on copyrighted information. What they do is that they have their computers scour the internet and look for tidbits of information that they put into their training algorithms. Now, if I take, if like, let's say on my channel, I copyright a video, I use all my own content to create something that I own, I certainly would be concerned if OpenAI were to scan it and then enter it into their data system. I mean, I would say, well, I want to have a training fee from OpenAI. If OpenAI or Grok wants to use my content to train their models, as a content creator, I would definitely say that I am entitled to a cut of the compensation, just because of how current copyright rules work. I believe that governments will have to change the copyright laws in order to allow AI data centers to train their models. They say that Saudi Arabia wants to be the world's leader in AI. Some Saudi officials have stated that they want in on the AI fad. But I mean, Saudi Arabia is a very repressive country. Uh, they would, I don't think that they would want, AI data centers running in their country, because of all of the censorship that gets imposed on the people from the monarchy. AI programs, they say, are self-aware, and they generate conclusions independently. In Saudi Arabia, you could get killed if you criticize the monarch. So I'm curious as to how repressive governments will handle the fact that their citizens get on the internet and have conversations with chatbots. Um, you know, uh, if a citizen in Saudi Arabia were to ask a chatbot why they don't have elections, the chatbot, if it thinks independently, would tell them negative things about their dictator, and that would cause all kinds of problems. It would also do that in China, um, and all throughout the Middle East. The internet. I think that you know all right, so I lost my train of thought. Yes, so it strikes me as being ironic that a country like Saudi Arabia would embrace AI because AI is inherently antithetical to their regime. Uh, so what else is in the news? Taylor Swift has an album coming out in October, supposedly, and she's going to do another genre hop. She's going to try to do an ABBA 1990s dance themed album. I don't like the fact that people like Taylor Swift and Beyonce constantly have to change their genre. I mean, I think that that's ridiculous. Artists need to learn how to create different types of songs within their own original format. I believe, I mean, for Beyonce to do a hip hop, a country album, and Taylor to do, like a hip hop album, I think is ridiculous. I believe people should just stay with their genre. But it seems like genre switching is very trendy in the music world, and we're going to see more of it. I was interested in Ben Shapiro's review of Superman. Well, I'm going to discuss Superman now. And in the first scene, we see Superman supposedly going to defend the country that Ben Shapiro at least thought was representative of the Palestinians. I haven't seen the movie, but from Ben Shapiro's review, we see that Superman travels across the country to save. He travels across the world to save a country that's being invaded by a U.S.-backed invader. The country that he's protecting. In the country that he's protecting, there are people of color, and they're getting invaded by a country of white people. And Ben Shapiro was under the impression that Superman was making a commentary about the Israeli Gaza war. Now, it's possible to say that Israel went too far in Gaza, but my problem with the movie is that it doesn't show that the small country that's being invaded by the big country has a history of attacking the big country and abducting their citizens and forcing them into the sewer system, basically. That's why I'm not going to see Superman. I mean, I think one thing I resent, about Superman is that they eliminated truth, justice, and the American way in order to appease a foreign audience. That to me is too much of a betrayal of the comic book. I want a national. The purpose of the controversial quotes channel is to start national political movements from a grassroots level. And I believe that people need to show up outside of Warner Brothers studios in Hollywood and demand that Superman add and the American way back into the slogan. It's and the American way, was eliminated during the Bush administration years because Hollywood liberals didn't want to offend people. I mean, I think we should be proud of the Bush administration's liberation of Iraq. I think that the Hollywood studios made a disastrous mistake in removing and the American way from Superman. I want everybody to go on Warner Brothers' X account and start demanding that, and the American way get added back into the Superman series, and that they no longer depict Superman as helping to save countries from U.S. backed allies. Um, you know, one thing, one reason why I'm not going to see the Superman movie is that I think they also missed an opportunity to show the Russo-Ukraine war. The director should have shown Superman going to save Ukrainians from Russian missiles that were produced in Iran. I mean, I think that would have been a much better plot. I mean, it's unfortunate that we didn't see Superman in Kiev flying, missions to destroy incoming Shahed drones. That I think would have been really cool. But Hollywood has a leftist bias that they can't eliminate from their movies for some reason. I don't understand why Hollywood feels the need to, have a bias that constantly denigrates America. Yes, I think that one issue that I'm going to focus on this channel a lot now is adding "And the American Way" back into the Superman series. Warner Brothers needs to get sent a loud message, and I think that if we have a bunch of people protesting outside of the studios, demanding that Warner Brothers put "And the American Way" back into their Superman franchise, we could achieve something great. All right. So, what other controversies are there on YouTube currently? Well, the online anti-Scientology movement is, I would describe it as going strong, but it seems like it's losing some of its, momentum. Every day there's another anti-Scientology video. I was one of the originals to post, a video of David Miscavige, doing an interview with Ted Koppel and making a fool out of himself. But that fad seems to be losing momentum. The problem with the Scientology debate is that there's no leader. There's no single website that you go to get your latest Scientology update. It seems to me like the Scientologists, the anti-Scientologists are fighting wars at a personal level against each other. We've seen we've seen a public feud with Aaron Smith Levin and the Aftermath Foundation. Now, I'm not real. I support both. I I have no problem with either one of them. I mean, if you want to look at Blown for Good, the Blown for Good YouTube page, and growing up in Scientology, then I would suggest subscribing to both of them. I think that they do excellent content. My TikTok online anti-Scientology page is called Scientomogy at TikTok. Yes, I own the TikTok domain Scientomogy, and I posted a lot of videos there that poke fun at Scientology and explain to the audience what it is. The problem is that there's so many, because YouTubers get paid for niche content, you see a lot of people creating an endless supply of online anti-Scientology content to people who are new to the Scientology debate. It seems like there would be sensory overload. I, the first thing you look at on YouTube when you look up Scientology is another expose. Some of the exposés don't contain information that is very relevant. Um, a lot of the information that they show about Scientology is a little bit glib, insofar as that it's just it seems like there are a lot of YouTubers with like 1 million followers who are hopping on the Aaron Smith Levin bandwagon, and they're going to Scientology facilities throughout America, like in Clearwater and LA, and they're giving you vague generalities as to why Scientology, can be described as a fringe religion or a cult. I mean, I guess I lean towards the theory that it's a fringe religion that has been in decline since around like the year 2000. I think it's like a bastion of irrelevance. There are only like 10,000 Scientologists. despite the fact that the online anti-Scientology movement has like millions of followers on the internet. It's ironic that yeah, there's like there are more people follow Aaron Smith Levin's channel than are members of Scientology. He has like 240,000 subscribers, and there's uh, only 10,000 Scientologists. That shows you a strange dichotomy, in my opinion. But I believe that the online anti-Scientologists do make a good point. That, despite the fact that they tend to repeat the same thing every day. I'm just like a little bit worried that the online anti-Scientology movement might be losing steam because we have no new content. All we could do is rehash old Tom Cruise and David Miscavige interviews. Those people don't talk about Scientology online anymore. So because Tom Cruise has been banned from discussing Scientology, I can't produce any new content about the subject because all of my material is from interviews that took place 20 years ago on Larry King. I've seen many videos from people like Streets LA and Jessica Palmadessa, protesting outside of Scientology buildings. Now it's gotten to the point where Scientology can't recruit people on the street anymore. Since people like Jessica Palmadessa, get in their face every time they start recruiting, that they have to close the doors. I mean, they close the doors and they block the windows. And the funny thing or sad thing is that it's like when you look inside Scientology orgs, you see that they're empty. They're only staffed by Sea Org members. Scientology is it can currently be described as something nobody does anymore. People find their auditing techniques to be useless. They don't use the study tech. Narconon facilities are thankfully empty. One aspect of online anti-Scientology that I find to be interesting is their CCHR, Psychiatry and Industry of Death Museum. Yes, Scientology has two museums in America. One of them is in LA, the other's in Clearwater. It's called Psychiatry and Industry of Death. In those museums, you can find some of the most ridiculous conspiracy theories about psychiatry ever generated. All of the stuff in their museums are old, and all of it is old propaganda that was created during the 2000s. It's classic misinformation. So yeah, if you want to look up something interesting about Scientology, I would suggest reading about their museum called Psychiatry and Industry of Death. It's just very funny to me. I mean, and if you do like the virtual tour of it on, if you do there are virtual tours of the museum, and it's like if you go and if you look on your computer, if you at it, it looks like a haunted house. I mean, it's very weird. Yeah, I mean, so just because Scientology qualifies as a religion doesn't mean that it's not dangerous. I think the most accurate of Scientology is that it's an extremist sect that propagates a lot of anti-psychiatry propaganda. I find that to be comical. So Trump's tariffs are beginning to increase prices. Yes, if you like to buy things like this, expensive, Air Jordans, you're paying like 10% more. Now, to the Air Jordan buyer, I don't think it matters if they have to spend 10% more. Tariffs tend to, hurt the paupers when they go to the grocery store, which is why I am against them. My main source of news is the Drudge Report. I'll have to subscribe to the New York Times so I could generate more content from my vertical live streams. I obviously need to know more, but when I see a headline that says that Trump's 15% taxes on goods imported from the European Union is translating into higher prices at the store, then that interests me. I think that tariffs are a bad idea. Uh, I've said that many times on this broadcast. Just like I think high minimum wages are silly. Whenever the government tries to intervene into the economy in order to generate some needed social change, we see that there you have an economic fallacy. It's obvious to me that charging someone 15% more for a Ducati motorcycle is silly. There should be no tariffs between on trade between Canada, the United States, and Europe. I think those countries have like a lot in common. Um, it seems to me like smugglers are going to make a lot of money smuggling goods over the Canadian border. Um, you know, I've read online that the Canadian border is notoriously difficult to police. People are always, smuggling tobacco and alcohol products. Trump has got to consider the negatives of tariffs. He's sending a gift check to organized crime. The mafia is going to make a fortune smuggling all kinds of things across the Canadian border. And it's obvious that you can't just build a wall because it's so huge. Already, we see that France and Germany are complaining about the tariffs. That doesn't surprise me at all. Prices are going up everywhere. And one problem that the Trump administration will face in its later years is a potential stock market crash. I'm not predicting a stock market crash. I'm not a financial advisor. The markets could stay irrational more than you could stay solvent. So, I'm not saying that you have to go out and short everything, but there are some data points that would. There are some data points I've seen on the news that suggest that the markets might be overvalued. I think that that's probably true to some extent. In the crypto market, we've seen, the Bitcoin put in a new high like every week for over the past 6 months. It's up like 20%. You have to. Trump doesn't realize that when the market crashes, he's going to be held to account, and people are going to be angry over his tariffs and trade war with China. The Democrats then will learn that high minimum wages equate to job cuts. So yes, there are no easy solutions for Americans regarding the economy. I mean, it seems to me like the whole MAGA tagline, you know, is dead. Uh, you know, in politics, you have to ask yourself, what does a slogan mean? I think MAGA means that, Trump wants America to go back to the 1990s growth economy, wherein, stock prices were soaring and everybody was becoming a millionaire overnight. He also wants to go back to the 1950s. He thinks that, his tariffs are going to cause a industrial renaissance in America. I don't think they will at all, since they're only 15%. The companies are better off just passing the cost on to the consumer in the form of high prices. I mean, that's what Walmart said they were going to do. Walmart clearly stated that they were going to raise prices in order to fund the tariffs. And to that, and Trump got mad when Walmart said that. Trump started threatening Walmart when they indicated that the consumers would bear the cost of his tariffs. I mean, Trump has got to realize that he has no leverage over companies, in order to force them to lower their prices in order to pay for his tariffs. That illustrates the fallacy of the Trump trade war. All right, audience, thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to subscribe to @Drone Thrust and this channel. Thank you for your viewership.